All right, and we are live, but I'm going to go play the.
On my end, it showed us first, and then you said, "Okay, I'm gonna play the intro."
Yeah, I don't have it down pat, guys. All right.
That's all right.
Guy,
That's
dude,
all right.
not an expert streamer. Rip.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to For the Minions, the weekly show where we talk about the Paragon remakes and Ethereal. This week we've got some pretty interesting stuff from Overprime, some map updates, and a lot of interesting little updates from Ethereal. Pred did a tweet, and then after that we're going to be talking about which heroes have not been implemented in any way in these games, and I did a poll for that. I'm your host, the Mangoose. Joining me always are my brothers in beards, Jelly Knees and the Viking Jedi. Jelly, how you doing, man?
I am fantastic, Mangoose. I don't know why, but I really wanted to hear you say Pred did a tweet in a southern accent, right?
Pred did a tweet.
Pred don't did tweet, man. Yeah, no, 100%.
That was
What
a little
about Viking?
boomhauer
Viking,
right there.
Say again? What?
That was a little bit of a boomhauer that you just threw out there.
We had a guy like that growing up. I'll tell you about him sometime. That was an interesting family, the McCullochs. They were actually inbred. Like, you think of West Virginia inbreeding, like they actually were. But anyway, Jen, I want you introduce yourself before I sink myself in deeper here.
Yeah. What's up, everybody? Hopefully everybody's week has gone well. I know this week, as far as at least the things we have to talk about, it's a little bit slim as far as the news, but I'm really excited to dive into the poll, and I know you're going to go into it in a little bit. But again, man, the community popping off, really showing up, and interested in what's to come for these things. And everybody in chat, appreciate you all being here, and I'm excited, man. It's been a good week. So
Did you make a new emote, Mangoose? Are these?
I have new emotes.
God. New emotes. Let's
love
go.
What happened? I did not make them though.
I don't get to use them. Oh, do you know what I have to join to unlock?
Oh, you poor motherfucker.
You know what the worst part is I've already joined and I still can't use them.
Really?
But that's because I'm on a brand account technically.
Oh. Wait, actually I think I might be a brand account too. I don't
Dumb
know.
old YouTube.
All right, well, let's go ahead and switch into the news. Let's head into Overprime. So, because they had probably the most news, or the biggest news this week. They had 2 Kalari shorts just showing off Kalari's abilities. Again, these weren't posted in their Discord. I don't know why they're not posting those as like updates or announcements or anything in their Discord, but they did have two things showing off Kalari's abilities, which if you don't know, Kalari's abilities in Overprime are a bit different than they were in Paragon, especially her ultimate. Jelly, you are a Kalari fanatic. Can you tell us what the difference is between Paragon's Kalari, False Kalari, Predecessor's Kalari, and Overprime's Kalari? I wasn't planning on asking all that, but it just hit me that she's in all of them.
Yep, thanks, Mangoose. I'm glad you put me on the spot here.
Jenny on the spot.
I guess I'll start with
Start with Paragon. Yeah, start with Paragon.
Yeah.
So what is it that was key about Paragon Kalari, and then has there been major changes, and what are they across the board to all three of them? That might be an easier way to explain it.
I mean, so Paragon Kalari, I think the biggest thing that's reference for all these games is Paragon Kalari had 2 different ultimates. She had one that was like a shorter dash that did a whole bunch of damage in a short area. And then she also had her not quite global, but very long range teleport by the time it was all said and done. Which is similar to what Fault has in game, that you can teleport to a target that you have vision on. And the big thing was she actually had a passive that let her see low health targets for a long time. And that I loved, which was you could see them through the map. And then you have that teleport ultimate, and it's just always a feels good for you, feels bad for them when you just show up on them out of nowhere. But she had her dagger. She had a single dagger that she threw. I say single because that's important later. She has her double jump, which was always super fun. And then she has her invisibility that she can press a button and go invisible, or rather go into the shadow plane and then proceed from there. Fault's version of Kalari has both ultimates, one of them being a basic ability instead of an ultimate, which is the short range dash that I mentioned. That one is in Fault. That is her E ability. Her Q is her invisibility, and her right click is still the single dagger throw. And she now has a regular passive of her double jump and that when she's invisible, she does extra damage. I believe it's called like Inviscerate and Predator are the two versions of the passive.
Is it like where she does extra damage when she's coming from being invisible? Is that what you're saying?
So
Like, or, is it on the first attack, or is it like for a short time after?
One of them is when she's unseen and then does damage for the first time. She does an extra bit of damage, I believe. And then the other one is isolated damage, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I've played Fault Kalari, honestly. For Predecessor, she has the short range dash as her ultimate, I believe. Trying to remember. I've played Predecessor Kalari like twice. But the big difference between Predecessor Kalari and the others is that her right click, her dagger has 2 charges instead of just a single throw. And that's a big difference for her, is that she's able to kind of chain those together, and they do slow on impact. So that's a huge tool for Kalari. The other big change with Predecessor in mind, and Fault for that matter, is the invisibility. When she is close to you, she is then slightly revealed to you as well. It's not a full invisibility like it was in Paragon, which many people hated. Again, fun for you as Kalari, unfun for everybody else.
Sure.
Which is kind of just Kalari in a nutshell.
Yeah, right.
Double jump and they go invis and disappear. Double daggers now for Pred, all that kind of stuff. The Overprime is drastically different than all the other games. Her E is a very long range dash that slows targets. If she does land her dagger before she dashes, instead of a slow, it is now a stun or a root, I believe.
Yeah, root.
They changed it. It is a root. So if she lands the dagger and then uses her dash, it's a root. Her Q is still her invisibility. And then her ultimate is just a flurry of daggers that stun the target right in front of her, instead of any kind of dash or anything like that. So Overprime Kalari is very, very different from any of these other games.
Now, which one was the most fun to play?
Oh, most fun is Overprime Kalari by a long shot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, by a long shot. I think she feels the most rewarding. Other versions of Kalari, it's fun to just like appear out of invisibility and chuck a dagger in somebody's face and do all this other stuff. But having to have the coordination of throw your dagger, land it, then use your E, then use your ultimate. She felt more like an all-in character that actually had to play well rather than the other games where it's easy to just get in and get out. She doesn't really have that kind of all-in commit assassin feel that she usually has.
That's what my thoughts on Overprime Kalari was, that they seem to have, the changes that they made to her made her just very all in. Like, you can't just hit somebody and run. It's no more guerrilla tactics. If you're going to take somebody, you better take them down, or or you're not getting away.
Yeah, they basically made her a burst assassin in Overprime, whereas in the others, she's an assassin if she gets the right amount of damage and the right amount of kills. But she's more she's almost like a weird like hybrid between assassin and bruiser. Sometimes it seems like.
So this is going to be slightly off topic, but it was live on the video, so I'm not sure if anyone else caught it. But we give Mangoose a lot of times a hard time about his gameplay footage. I just want to say, dude, you're playing Countess in mid lane, and you did your dash on a minion, and then you used the dash back or whatever, the teleport back to avoid the meteor. I was like, well, that was a really good play from Mangoose. So I know this is not Kalari related, but we give Mangoose a lot of times a hard time about his gameplay. But you're sitting here popping off on Countess, and I just thought that was a really, really good job. I don't know if you did it on purpose, but it looked like
100%. I called it out as I did it too. I was like, watch this. I'm going to dash this minion and then redash to avoid the rock. I think I said those exact words as I did it, but
it was cool. Perfect. I was just impressed. Sorry, I didn't mean to totally derail it.
Yeah,
but
you derailed it, but you were talking good about me, so I'll allow it. As far as, and then as for more Overprime updates, looking at their Trello, it's so nice that they have this Trello that we can look at every week and get all these spicy updates. And some of these were actually pretty spicy. So matchmaking and server selection got moved to fixed and update. Rank mode developments fixed and update. So they did say that they'll have ranked mode right off the rip. So that's going to be very exciting for a lot of people. Profile system improvements, new hero balance adjustments, and penalty system improvements. So that's a problem that they had quite a bit, was hacking in Overprime. I think even more so than any of the other games. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's just the anti-cheat software they were using or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it could be that they're the region they're also reaching out to, right? That a lot of the time we do see a lot of those hacks and cheats coming from the Eastern market rather
Right.
than the Western market. And so because they have more Eastern players, there's more development into hacks and cheats for Overprime.
Sophisticated Carrot always cracks me up in chat.
He always has some good choice words. What's up, Stunt? And I agree with his take too. Like ranked mode is probably the most exciting news to those of us who want to put ourselves out there and actually try and make some climbs happen. I'm very interested to see how they do it. If it's going to allow for like a solo duo queue, or if it's going to allow for 5 stacking, which I think would be fun for us probably because we'll be able to get an actual 5 stack together. But I feel bad for a community wise if you end up as a solo or a duo into a 5 stack, you're obviously at a huge disadvantage. Not impossible to win, but probably a lot harder in most cases. So as much as I would love to play ranked with the boys, I kind of hope that they still do it as a solo duo queue. And if they get enough player base, do it like League of Legends does, have like a flex queue where you can have people play 5v5 and get more of that organized play. But player base is more important. And so for a healthy ranked, I think solo duo is probably the way to go. And that was of all these things. I mean, obviously hero balance adjustments and penalty systems and all that stuff is exciting. Just hearing them sticking to their word that ranked mode is coming, it's obviously something they're working on. And again, getting these Trello updates really makes it easy.
Yeah.
I think another thing with that is the matchmaking and server selection update is theoretically, hopefully they're adding some kind of system similar to what League does as well. That if there's a duo on one team, there's another duo on the other team, right? If you're in like normal play and you're 5 stacking, it'll look to try and put you against a 5 stack first, because we know that there were games during their last test we were 5 stacking and we were against basically a team of solos, it seemed like.
100%.
All of that kind of stuff, right? So hopefully that also is an improvement. So even outside of ranked, if they allow you to do 5 stacks, then they still are trying to put you against another 5 stack or as high a pre-made as they possibly can.
Yeah, that was definitely a problem, and they identified that as a problem. So and it's something that they wanted to solve. So I guarantee we're going to see some sort of solution coming through. But I think rank mode is even more exciting for the casual player, because you won't have to go against those ranked sweats. And then, however, I don't think it'll do anything about toxicity. From what I know about Heroes of the Storm, is quick match is even far more toxic than ranked when it doesn't matter. But anyway,
you won't go against teams that are taking 7-minute orb primes and ending the game in 8.5 minutes in the casual anymore. So
to answer a medkit's question, my favorite assassin is whatever Jelly's playing, so that I can play mid lane. That's my favorite assassin.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, he didn't ask me, but Countess is my favorite assassin in the game. I think Countess is, dude, look at that butt, bro. Let's go. And she's got, and the skin you're using on this one, she's got the Lucy hair going on,
Yeah.
To be fair, Countess is like one of the only actual assassins in all these games.
I know, right? Just straight up burst assassin.
Yeah, I mean, Kalari in Overprime is, but Kalari in other games is not. So really, like, straight up burst assassin is Countess.
It's funny too, because because we were gone from Fault for so long after we played Overprime and we went back, I thought for sure you were gonna play Kalari again, and I remember you were like, oh no, she's not my favorite in this, and I was like, what? Nope. Dude, she was so good, and I didn't know, because I just didn't play her, how much more of a facilitating assassin she was, and why you enjoyed her so much more in Overprime.
And that's I cannot get into Fault's Kalari. Like, I've played her several times, right? Put the time in to be decent at her, and it never feels good to play Fault Kalari sometimes. And that is a separate Fault conversation, I think, partly for that, but in general, like that, I loved the feel of Kalari's Overprime at the bare, or Overprime's Kalari. At the bare minimum.
Yeah. Crimson Rage trying to jump ahead to when we are going to talk about the add-ons of champions we want to see. We're not there yet, Crimson. Okay, we'll talk about that later. I do also just really quickly, I want to give a shout out to Clorox because he's a longtime supporter of the channel, and he's thinking about starting his own streaming on YouTube. I know he's been on Twitch, so if you guys are not already following Clorox, go give him a follow. We'd love to give shout outs to our friends on here, and I just remembered 100%. That when I saw him in chat.
I think you can just
Clorox,
click on his name right now and then fucking...
Yeah.
And if you can't, you need to flame Mangoose in the chat right here.
That's a you. I can't control that.
Yeah, but you're the one who said you could do it.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
You,
it is on me.
What's up, Joshua?
I
Welcome,
ordered the
sir.
pizza, therefore it is my responsibility now.
Exactly.
You
Gotta
guys,
make sure there's pineapple on it. Come on.
you guys got anything else for Overprime before we move on to probably Ethereal?
So I didn't think about it, but the ranked mode developments, I think, I mean, they've always said that they were gonna have ranked mode on release. I never realized that they didn't show it on Trello until now. So this to me is like the final telltale sign that like we're closer than we think. Sure, there's adjustments to be made to the rank system, but they'll make probably some of those beforehand and then a lot of them after as players are getting into it. But I still think it's exciting to see. And like I said, telltale sign that we've got to be somewhere in this vicinity of release for them.
I mean, I have no like, I have no qualms in saying this. I think it's going to be scuffed out the gate. Like, I think it's going to be bad. And not because I think that they are going to do anything inherently bad into themselves, like dev wise. I just think that whenever a new game comes out and ranked is part of that equation, the queues are going to be just weird. Everything. I mean, if you use Overwatch 2 coming out free to play as a reference, you're going to have people who haven't touched the game before. You're gonna have people who've been try hard sweats playing the game, and they're gonna all be in the same lobbies playing against each other because there's no MMR. There's no so everybody's gonna just be there. So those like probably that first month is just gonna be a cluster fucking ranked. It's going to be bad, and I'm gonna be part of it. So
You bring up Overwatch 2, but Overwatch 1 on release, their rank system was terrible.
oh
To
yeah,
the point that you had silver players getting into the highest ranks just because they purposefully queued at 4 a.m. when no one was on in their region as a 5-stack.
Yep.
And then went in there against solos, 1s and 2s, and just dominated the game. So they made their way all the way through the ranks just because there was no one to put them against. And I'm sure we're gonna see stuff like that nonstop.
Yeah, I've got a lot to say about Overwatch, but this is the place for it, I guess. I said it's not even 1.5; it's just 0.5.
I also have some stuff we could talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
We can skip it. We can go.
Yeah, let's go to Ethereal.
Hey, Ethereal. Ethanol.
All right.
That's the game. Okay.
So let's
I hear
move
good
on
things
to
about this game.
updates for Ethereal, who made quite a few updates to their map, and I'm going to put Jelly on the spot once again, but I think he was probably seeing that. He saw that coming this time.
I wasn't. I was way more prepared for Kalari than this.
Okay.
Don't worry, I'll cover. I did a lot of studying on this map and last night, and I'm ready.
Okay.
So, Jelly, walk us through the changes, the map changes, the ambiance changes, some of the sound changes for Ethereal.
Yeah, so we just put out a post on our social media an hour and a half or so ago, and it will go up on Discord at a later point as well. So the big changes that we've made here is just kind of overall gameplay improvements and some visual improvements here and there for the map. A big one for the map is adding ramps to each lane so that characters that can't fly or climb can have access to the verticality of the map and get above and make plays accordingly without needing to use an ability or anything like that, right? It just opens up the map for more players, more accessibility, more characters, the whole 9 yards. So super cool about that. We've updated our portal visual effects. Before they looked okay, but they were really taxing. There were a lot of particles to make them look good. And the more we looked at it, we kind of like trying to scale down those particles, and it just didn't have the same feel once we got to the point where it was really performant, but still looked good. So we decided to kind of revamp those, and we've got the new portals. You guys are seeing them on screen for all 3 lanes being fire, ice, and void. So all of those, I personally love those, but I'm a little biased to be honest. But Mangoose, I know you said you really like those portals.
Yes, I noticed them before I even knew that you made them.
Exactly. Perfect. That's what I love to hear. I mean, we've got a reworked area in Void for like kind of adding more ambiance to it that you see there's like fireflies in the air and a little bit of water on the ground. And kind of ambiance increased across the board. So we've got like sounds of crickets as you're walking through some of the jungle area, and we've got animals like birds flying around the map and things like that, like trying to kind of make it feel more like a place that exists and not just like, yeah, we stuck assets on a map and called it a day, right? And moved on. And we're of course adding more of that stuff as time goes on, but it's finding the right way to do it without making it over the top or anything like that. In addition, we've got, let's see, I mean, Fire Lane, I think, has had the most extensive updates of all the lanes. Fire Lane, the rocks are completely different. The old rocks were really a problem with the Reapers trying to climb up them, that you could bounce off of them really easily. In addition, walking on top of them was really difficult and really like jittery as you're walking along because they were uneven. So we completely updated the rocks to fix those. They're actually taller in the map, so they obscure a little more vision from like Sky Slayers, for instance. But provide when you're on those ramps and you are walking across, you've got that height. So you're not just going to be seen. Somebody looking down the lane is not just going to see you because the rock is half the screen height. Right now there's actually some elements to that have to be played around with. We've also added a kind of like cave that takes you up from the Guardian portals all the way up into the lane itself, which is really nice. In Ice Lane, you've been able to go from the Guardian to the lane really easily. Whereas in Fire, you kind of had to make this long meandering path all the way around, and it just took forever. So we provided a shortcut for that, but it's a one-way. So you can go and jump into the lane, but you can't use the lane to jump into there and out. So it's an interesting way to kind of fix that and provide some more traversal of the map that helps. I mean, there are so many updates. We've added footstep sound effects. We've got lane redesigns and camp placements all over the place. I mean, the towers, that's a big one. The towers have been completely redesigned.
Oh, yeah.
The last thing we've had for the community was the old stone towers that were on the old map. And so these towers are completely different, have been updated from the ground up. And we love these. And I mean, the biggest thing, which the keen-eyed that are watching this video will see, and is that we've removed one tower from each of the lanes.
Ooh.
So originally in Ethereal,
I didn't
each
notice that.
lane had 3 towers, and then you had the inhibitor or the spire is what we call it. And then you had the elder to kill. So effectively had 5 objectives in one lane to take. And it just prolonged these games out forever because that's so much. And it didn't create much distance between the towers themselves. Basically, you had a little teeny sliver of a gap between towers. So there wasn't, and it created a lot of safety for enemy players, but also made it hard for allies to get in there and try and kind of box somebody in to make plays with. So we removed a tower entirely and have created a lot more space with that and aligned our game with more other MOBAs that we have a similar number of objectives in each lane to take. So that's been a big one that's really helped balance things around and kind of create some cool opportunities for teams.
I like that a lot. Plus the towers, the towers before were actually a little bit hard to distinguish from the rest of the environment because they were they just kind of melded in. So that's really good to see. Seems like there's a different wyvern enclosure too, at least for Fire Wyvern.
Fire Wyvern's the same enclosure as last time.
Really? Are you sure?
I'm certain.
Okay. Maybe your last time, maybe not my last time.
I'm pretty sure.
That looked pretty different to me.
We haven't changed that at all.
Okay.
I'm not even sure where you're seeing that in this footage.
I don't know. Also, I'm very curious about what the garden decoration in the middle of Void Lane is.
the orb thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it looks cool, man. Goose, come on, man.
So that's what it is? It's just a decoration. It doesn't do anything?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not telling you anything.
You son of a bitch.
You sort of.
No, but overall, I think really good changes to our map that improve a lot of the elements. And they're relatively small, but they improve a lot of the gameplay options for the game, which I think is nice.
Yeah.
And it looks great. It looks great from what I'm
Fire
seeing.
Lane's still best lane, in my opinion. The aesthetics of Fire Lane are just so fucking cool. But I do think that the portal update does look. I didn't realize that it was such a taxing thing. But the ramps, I think, is probably because like that's obviously like a balance thing, and so the fact that you guys are looking at balance issues as part of like I know you guys are doing testing every week and stuff like that too. But I think that's going to be really really interesting. I do think in like some of them, and I know this is something that can be changed at some point, but like because it's almost like the ramps stick out a little too much, like they're a little bit like I don't know, like the eye catches those way more aggressively than the other terrain because it doesn't have the same like breaks in it and cracks and stuff like that. It's a little bit more smooth, like so we're going over the ice one right now. You see it's kind of like very linear the same way. all the way up, whereas the rest of the terrain is a lot more blocky and stuff. So I think if we added more texture to that, that's just a nitpick, by the way. I think it overall functions more important than aesthetic. But I do have a question for you, because this will be for, like, the people who are going to be running on maybe lower machines and stuff like that. With all the additions of, like you said, there's like birds flying around and stuff like that. Did you, one, notice much of a performance thing, or two, is that something that will be able to be like toggled off, like similar to League, how you can like turn off some of like the extras so that way you're still getting max performance?
So it's both, right? We've of course been watching as we add these things and as we do these things, that the performance is very key to all of this, right?
Sure.
So for instance, like the portals are effectively almost like a 100% increase in performance comparatively to the old portals.
Oh, wow.
Like for the amount that they take to generate, right? So that vastly increases performance when you're looking at this portal. But as for everything, when we're adding assets into the map, performance is always top of mind, making sure that we're not killing performance by adding new things or too many assets or all that. And it's a balancing act, right, of trying to keep quality versus performance at all times. But also, we've made sure that adding this stuff is also able to be varied in the settings, right? So foliage, you can turn the foliage completely off, which is a huge performance benefit, but the map looks a little more bare, right? Like, so it's a lot of that stuff. Yeah, the animals you can turn off. A lot of these extra effects can be turned off or dumbed down accordingly, depending on what you're looking to give for your game.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think it looks great. Personally, it's just so cool. I mean, it's one of those things that's just exciting to watch the development as it happens. And I never noticed how bright the cracks in the rocks were for where you can climb. Like when I was in game, and it seems like
you can climb anything.
Destroy.
Yep.
Or the destroy ones. Sorry, the destroy ones. Yeah, that I didn't notice that before.
Like that. That's how you do
but
it
it's been a
every
while
time.
since I've been in game. And I think the new turrets look awesome. I'm a big fan of the new turrets. I think they look really, really cool, and they're very distinct. And I'm a big fan of the map change too, to the lowering the objectives, like you mentioned, for the lanes, because there are, when I was a tester, now this was a while ago, games would go forever, and a lot of it was just having to really brute force through all the turrets and objectives to be able to get to an end game state. And so I do think that that'll help speed things up. Have you guys noticed that already in testing?
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah. And it just creates more space to do things in, right? Like a big thing, a big problem for Void, especially prior to that objective lowering, was those towers were basically on the river, or as close as possible, because everything was, you only had so much space. You just squish everything in there. Right. So then the safety of the lane is through the roof, because then if I'm Dante, all I have to do is just roll backwards one time and I'm back in tower safety.
Sure.
Right. So it creates space in the lane, at least initially, that then now you have these prolonged fights where you actually can chase somebody down to their tower before they just get to safety for free. Or you have a Sky Slayer or a Reaper coming in from the jungles to provide a gank, and they're not just instantly safe the second they notice you. So it's definitely been really helpful to see all of that come through with that change in particular.
So going to what XP85 is asking, so we can expect release Christmas?
Yeah, I can't say anything on that one.
It was pointed out to me. It was pointed out to me this week that my beard has gone gray literally has gone gray while waiting for these games. And it really has.
You know what? You should. That's actually a good thing. Either you or somebody who's a fan of the channel should do like a time lapse of bearded, or of your beard as it's changed over the last few years.
I would say do a time lapse of his hair too, but well, do that.
Well, because you've had this channel for a lot longer than I thought you did. I was fooling around on your channel. This is again way off topic, but I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize you've been making content for as long as you have. That's
Conan
awesome.
Exiles.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Okay, so are we good on Ethereal?
I think so.
Ethanol.
All right, let's move on to Predecessor. Not much out of Predecessor this week. All they did was a tweet just reassuring the community that they're on track for early access this year. So nothing, not huge news out of Pred, but at least it's something. And
it seemed like it was almost like a response. Like some
Someone
large
messaged
figure
them.
was like, Fred's not coming out this year. And they were like, we're still coming out in early access this year. Like it was just random. Like it was, okay, I'm not sure. Thank you. Like,
I see.
just
I
was
took a
weird.
different. When I read it, I was like, "Wait, so were you not thinking you could come
Yeah.
out this year? Like, was there somebody in the background saying, "No, guys,
Yeah.
I don't know if we're gonna make it"? But no, I mean, yay, I guess.
It just seemed like it seemed like they were like, okay, we haven't put out news for a little bit. People are probably getting so that let's give them a little reassuring thing. When I saw it, like the first thought was exactly what I said about Richter's Electrocute in the Honest Hero review. I said Electrocute is an ability. I moved on. I was like, Pred did a tweet, and then you move on because like it wasn't really that important or anything beneficial to us, especially since we track this shit so vehemently. But I guess somebody that isn't tracking it that close, this would be pretty big news for them. My second thought too was okay. Well, go ahead.
Bearded brings up a perfect thing though. The Pred community ate it up.
Yeah, kind of.
Like tweet responses are like, yeah, let's go. It's like, did you not know this before?
Yeah.
I'm confused. Like I feel like this is something we've known for like 6 months now. Why are we freaking out about the same information over again? But I mean, that's the Pred community. They freak out over the same information over and over again. So
it's fine.
But the second thing I thought when I saw it, I was like, how is Ruba going to defend this on FTM?
Ruba, come on, where are you?
He's not even here to defend himself
like I
this
said,
time.
They've been very quiet.
They have,
and that's fine. They're working on getting the game out. They just wanted to let the community know that they're still around it, they're still working on it, and everything's on track. So better than nothing.
I guess it is better than nothing. I mean, I know we give them a hard time because we want as much information, especially since we talk about it every week. But I just think the community as a whole, whether you're a diehard Pred fan or not, just needs to remember a lot of devs do this. Most games are not putting out constant updates about what they're doing in the behind the scenes, and so it's totally understandable that they're trying to keep things under wraps to an extent, and they release what they want to release when they want some kind of feedback or to keep the hype rolling. I wish they gave more because I do think it's beneficial to them too to get community feedback on things. Like the hero kits and stuff like that, where they can take some of that feedback and be like, oh, or maybe adjust how they released it and re-explain things to give more clarity. But ultimately, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
All right. Indeed.
I think that's about all I had for Pred, unless you guys had anything else.
Nope.
No.
All right. We got nothing for Fault this week, and I don't want to just sit here and bash Fault for a half an hour. So let's move on to the poll. So this poll was, out of the heroes that have not been represented in any way, which one would you prefer to see next in any of these games? Now, this does exclude Terra, but I think that brings something up that a lot of people don't seem to realize. There's only 5 heroes left that haven't been represented in one of the games or another. I think this is also a big eye-opener for people that, they stick with one game, they track any news that comes out about that one game, and that's it. So when you see that, so they have no idea what's been shown by the other ones. They have no idea that Iggy and Scorch they're in Fault. They have no idea that like Wraith and Seraph have been shown in Overprime, and or they don't realize Howitzer's in freaking Predecessor. So
and OP, because we saw Howitzer in OP now too.
Yeah, but I'm just or Drongo. Drongo is in Predecessor, not in any of the other games. So there's not that many heroes that have not been represented in some way, shape, or form, and people just didn't seem to realize that. Bearded, why not Terra? Because fuck Terra, Bearded.
And because specifically you said you've played Terra before, so we don't want to talk about her.
No, I could only do 4. I could only do 4 for the poll, so I had to cut one of them. So I cut Terra because
nobody played Terra. Only losers played Terra.
I wouldn't say that. A lot of people like Terra, but she was the last one to get added to the roster, and people had stopped playing Paragon by the time.
So
Terra
to be
was
fair,
released.
to all the Terra mains out there, I do think Terra beats out a lot of people. These other 4, probably 3 of these other 4 characters, in terms of like what would add the most dynamic gameplay to these games, because like the hard one, we talked about it in the chat we had this week, Mangoose. None of these games have like a hard tank, like a really, really hard tank. Rampage is a health tank, so it's kind of iffy there. Steel would be the closest one that we've talked about, but he's been turned into a bruiser in a lot of these games.
Sephiroth maybe,
There's,
but only if he's got his stacks, right? Like,
and even then he's kind of bruisery too. Like Terra was designed to be a tank through and through, right? Like anti CC, right? She just through everything was designed to be this character, and none of these games have that.
mhm.
And I think that's vastly beneficial, especially as you go into like competitive play or ranked play. Having someone like that is super beneficial, so you can do things with other character picks around the map.
That's it, the levy. Before your pull, I forgot Sinks even existed. Terra, I think I dicked around with her just a little bit at the very, very end of Paragon's lifespan. I thought her Q was a little underwhelming, and they could have done a lot more with that. If you guys have ever played Bologna in Smite, she has a bit of a similar Q with her hammer, where she spins once and then chops down.
Mhm.
But with hers, the more enemies you hit with the initial spin, the more damage that second chop does. They could have done that with Terra and made her a lot more interesting, I think.
Mm.
Absolutely.
But
I think they don't want her. They want her to have the ability to do something damage wise without making her a bruiser,
Mhm.
because everyone turns into a bruiser, right? Nobody really stays a tank. You either die a tank or live long enough to see yourself become a bruiser, right? Like it's one of those things. And Terra died a tank, and thank God, because we need more actual tanks in the game.
I wonder though, because the person MOBA space is what it is, like, because in like, you know, League and Dota, tanks are like a lot more like given a lot more agency in a lot of ways. Like they're by the community, they're like appreciated a lot more. And I don't get that same vibe from the third person MOBA space. Like it just feels like people just want to play things that can get kills and show up on, you know, a YouTube highlight reel. And I wonder if that has any play on like the decisions at least that Paragon was making. And now obviously all these other games are that they weren't really focusing a lot on that until it was like, okay, we don't have a tank and we need to put in a tank because we don't really have one. And I would be interested to see if it actually still works. Like, especially like if you think about games like Overprime, where like it's very, very fast paced, you add in a tank into that mix, like what does that really look like? And
I think
I think it would be fun.
That's the nail right there, right? Is that most of these games have adapted to be a more fast-paced play style,
Mm-hmm.
right? Right. In some capacities, whether it's time to kill or just the actual speed of the game itself,
Mm-hmm.
right? And tanks can drastically alter that feeling in the game. And I think Paragon was scared of that for a long time, because especially with their unsure of how the gameplay wanted to flow in general. So they just made everyone a bruiser, because then your game can stay the same way without really changing, but you still add in the cool tanky-ish characters,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I think the same problem goes into these other games. I think Overprime especially. Throwing a tank into Overprime, granted the last version of Overprime that we've played, could shake up the entire game, because I mean, and Narbash was kind of a tank in that regard, and
Yeah.
it did shake up the entire game. Right?
Oh,
Like,
it changed the whole thing. Yeah, right.
his
At the
ability
end.
to just stay alive forever made a huge difference, and that is what I want to see more of in these games, is that change in pace because of a character selection, or change in itemization because of a character selection, and things like that.
Mm-hmm. I
I
agree.
felt Steel was a pretty good tank.
Yeah, I think you and I talked about that, Mangoose, that the only real tank we had was Steel, but even the remakes have made Steel a more of a bruiser in that case as well than even he was in Paragon.
I mean,
think the closest
I know
one
in Fault he's far more successful in the jungle or offlane than he is as a support.
well,
Just
and he
straight
feels
tank.
more like a disruptor too. Like less so about like, you know, I'm going to stand in front and protect my, you know, carries, and you know, it seems more like I'm going to get in there, disrupt, like, you know, like crazy, dash in. But like, you know, Crunch kind of feels the same way to me too. It's like less about being a tank and more about just a disruptor and bruiser than. And I think that's the case. Like you guys are both saying. What was the one that you guys picked that you wanted added? Because I know mine, and it's already in one game, but I want to see it in the other games. But because I don't have as much Paragon background as you two do, so I don't have as strong of opinions about the ones that were picked. But so what were your guys' though? Because I think that'll be interesting to hear.
I think Aurora, actually. I'm with the community on this one.
Mm.
I know I'm going to read through some of the comments that were left. I know some people didn't think that Aurora really added a lot. I think just her ice wall added quite a bit to the third-person MOBA experience, because you could block off people's escapes in interesting ways, And it could also be used as an engage. It could transport your team. I mean, Gideon could do the same thing as Aurora, really, but Gideon can't block people off.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just that ability, and then her ice clone as well. Whenever you're wrapping a corner, and I'll say this right now, a medkit is in chat right now. I recorded with a medkit and JPie, and we talked about the heroes that haven't been specifically added to Predecessor yet. We went in alphabetical order, so Aurora was first, and we discussed Aurora. And one of the things you could do with her with that ice clone is, as you're wrapping a corner, you pop the ice clone. Not only are you jumping forward, but you're leaving them an obstacle that they can't get around unless they attack it or weave around it. So there's a lot of possibilities that Aurora affects the actual terrain, which is, I think, what you need for a third-person MOBA to be successful. So I want to see her.
I think that Aurora is fun, right? But I do agree with that comment you were kind of referencing. I guess I'll read it since we're both going to talk about it. Everyone voting. This is from Kuki Couture. Everyone voting for Aurora is wrong. Yin adds a melee carry, Wukong adds a balance test for the developers, and Zinx adds a sustain mage. All the Ice Queen does is an area stun. There's nothing new there to test the waters.
Which I agree with a lot of what he said there, just not with the Aurora part.
Aside from the ice wall, though, I do kind of agree with him, right? Like Aurora, her ice clone is cool, but it's not really anything new to test the waters with that really pushes something in any of these games. But the ice wall is the only thing I don't have an argument for. I think that ability is fantastic, could be great in all of these games, no question there. But I've been saying this for a long time. As much as I hated Wukong in Paragon, I'm really excited to see Wukong, and I want Wukong in one of these games to see what they do with him, because he was one of the, I think he was the only one that can really be classified as a stance switcher in Paragon. And that adds a whole other level of gameplay, because you effectively are creating 2 to 3 heroes in one go by having these different stances, right? If a character wants to go more about the mobility stance, right, that's a different type of gameplay. If that character wants to go more about the damage stance, that's a different type of gameplay, right? That creates a huge balance test for developers, but also a huge variety for both Wukong players and people playing against Wukong, that create a lot of different situations to put players in, which is where I think these games can really benefit. The ice wall from Aurora is, yep, we're blocked off, or yep, she trapped me in, but Wukong adds dozens more in my head, just throwing out a random figure, right, of different variations of gameplay that can create excitement just by having him added to the game, assuming they keep the stance switching aspect of Wukong.
Right. What about you, Jedi? You brought this.
Well, I do want to touch this of the comments. I mean, there was a lot of really, really good comments, and I know we could only cherry pick some of them, right? But like, I liked this comment the most out of all of them, because I thought it was the most looking at things from a dev perspective, not just so much like I have nostalgia and I want to play said champion, which I think is fair to do. Like, you want to just play your favorite champion, that's fine. So looking at it from that perspective, I found myself going like, I didn't even really kind of think about that. Like, you know, like Wukong absolutely is probably one of the ones that seems to like have the most reaction whenever that name gets brought up. And for good reason, right? Like, it was either broken or, you know, he got Goomba stomped or whatever. It was always some kind of weird thing. And I think that adds a really good argument into this. And I of the ones that were picked, I was a Zinx fan. I just thought that the sustain mage sounds like a lot of fun. Now, granted, this is also assuming they keep them fairly the same as they were in Paragon, but for my personal pick, I just want to see Iggy and Overprime. I want to see what they would do with Iggy. Iggy and Fault is a lot of fun, and I thought that Fault did a really, really good job of integrating him into their champion pool. He was one of my favorite picks when I wasn't, try-harding and playing Gideon, because I almost always play Gideon if we were actually trying to win games. But I feel like, yeah, Iggy would be super fun to see in an Overprime. And I'm sure Pred would do a really good job, but I didn't get to play Pred, so I'm not sure how they would integrate him. But I feel like Overprime, I don't know what they would do, but I feel like they would make something about his kit super crazy and fun. And I would just love to see it. I just think it would be really cool. Otherwise, I would agree with Zinx. Aurora, she was okay for me. I didn't really have a strong opinion one way or the other. I also didn't probably see her get played at a high level. A lot of times, the few times that I can remember off the top of my head that I saw Aurora, she just kind of was like
Our Aurora versus their Aurora.
Yeah, it just seemed like it was.
Aurora.
It just didn't seem like it was a
Aurora
very
comes from a rural area.
But I do agree with Mingus's aspect of like adding in more terrain environment or changes and adding in height and adding in more play, because that's when you're playing third person MOBA, it's like you're down in the nitty gritty. So anything that adds verticality or changes your environment that you're in, it's not like you're top down, like, you know what I mean? When an Anivia pops up her wall, while of course stops your ability to move in that direction, it doesn't change a lot of like how you view the game. You still see the game the exact same way. Whereas with Aurora, it could change your whole thing. Do you miss a skill shot now? Do you miss, like, you know, like, are you blocked in somewhere? Like, right. I don't know. It just sounds
in an
so much
isometric
more.
mode, but you can still see what's going on the other side of that wall. When
Right.
Aurora walls you off, you don't know if the enemy team's waiting for that wall to drop and then jump on you or what. So, some of the comments too. We got Surge Ben. I mained Yin in Paragon, but I think Aurora would bring more depth to the battlefield, which is something that needs to be built on. And I really like to see that. Like, yeah, he's a Yin fan, but he is identified, or he or she, I don't know, has identified that you know, Aurora fills a niche that isn't quite there. However, I think I think all of these characters will be amazing to see in any of these games. But
yeah, whoever picked these 4 to choose from for the community really nailed it.
well, I didn't really. The developers picked them.
Devs have picked 4.
Yeah, I didn't pick these.
I do agree. I think each of these heroes bring something different to the game.
Yeah.
Zing's probably being the least of that, but I think each one does, and it makes sense at that point, right? These are probably some of the most game altering in terms of balance and development and all of that abilities from Paragon, right? That are the harder ones theoretically to bring into the game. Makes sense why they've been pushed off so far.
Surge Ben is a he. He just
there you go.
can't be assuming genders out here, man.
You can't do that, dude. It's 2022. You better be careful.
Let's see another one. Juan D. Cardenas. Zinx was my favorite among these. Too bad they never really found a good way to keep her balanced. I really do hope one of these remakes ends up doing her justice. And again, will they be able to balance these heroes? Because Zinx was apparently just extremely weak on release, and then she just got like way overpowered. I personally, the first 5 games I played on Zinx fucking just trashed people. I don't know what it was that clicked in my head with her. I realized very early on not to use Kitty Claws ever, like her Q that sapped mana to put a dot on people with their basic attacks. Horrible ability because it just used all of your mana. But if you did, as long as you did, the ricochet stun though, holy shit, that was a really cool thing.
That was the thing that I think was the hardest thing to balance about Zinx, was the ricochet stun was just beyond powerful in late game team fights, right? If you get a full team fight breakout and you have any kind of large CC on your team, and she just ricochet stuns and just large CC whoever it was that she hit with it, it doesn't matter, right? Like, it just is over. And I think I would love. I mean, I would love to see a balanced version of Ricochet Stun exist in one of these games, but if they don't feel like they can make that balanced, turn it into a silence. Turn it into that it ricochets a silence along the enemy team, so they can at least still play the game, they can still maneuver, they can still do things, but their abilities are down for a while. And that, I think, could add a lot of diversity to these games as well.
Oh, that would be awesome. Could you imagine how pissed you'd be if you were about to... You're about to ult with Muriel and somebody gets a little too close to you and that ricochet hits you. Yeah.
And if one of these games adds ricochet silence into the game, I'm hereby claiming 10%. Thank you.
There he goes. There he goes. Oh, no, Zinx was a lot of fun for me. Zinx was also kind of highlighted the various problems with Paragon, though, is whenever they switched to the card gem system, there was a certain card, I forget exactly what it did, something to do with mana and health manipulation, which was what Zinx was all about. If you did not have that card on Zinx, you could not play Zinx.
Yeah.
You just had to have that card. And so you had to have gotten lucky enough to have unlocked that card. So that kind of sucked. And that sort of highlighted the problem with Paragon towards the end. Let's see, another one. Alan Mosa, I picked this one because it kind of highlighted what a lot of people felt about Wukong. I'm only voting for Wukong to see what people's ideas are for fixing him without making him useless. A lot of people in the comments, and Jelly even mentioned it too. He's a balance check. implementation check to see if they can actually make that work, whereas when Epic couldn't.
Yep, absolutely.
But like we've got Chris Rush also said it ain't a MOBA until it's got Wukong, which is 100% true.
100%.
Every fucking MOBA has a Wukong, or if
Even
they don't have a
Ethereal's gonna
Wukong, they've
work
got
on
a
Wukong at some point.
Yeah, you got to have
That's a
Wukong.
requirement.
Even if there's not a Wukong, then they have at least a Wukong skin for a Wukong-ish fucking hero. It's every goddamn one. Another comment I appreciated. Anna Henrietta, side cheek queen, obviously. Yep.
Obviously, of course.
And then you already read the one from Cookie Culture. Then Nico Zinks, I haven't played Paragon, but from her kit, I could already say she was a balancing nightmare. Still, I don't think I've seen a ranged tanky hero with focus on balancing aggression and conservation. And yes, I do realize that Vladimir exists in League, but Zinks took the concept to 11.
She really did. Pops off.
That to me, like, so one of the things that we talked about, it was not maybe this last FTM, but the FTM before that, was that I really want to see like more diversity in the off lane, that other than just like, you know, tanky boys or bruisery boys beating the shit out of each other for 30 minutes. And I can see, and this is going to lead to a question that I have for you guys, but I can see like, you know, one of these studios putting Zinx and trying to design her to be more of an offlaner, or, you know, something along those lines where she can be like a Vladimir Top. You know what I mean? Like Vladimir Top was, no, he's maybe not as much of a thing now, but he still can work in certain matchups, go into the top lane and absolutely just destroy those beefy boys, because there's just not, they have no outplay for him. He's, you know, ungankable. He has infinite sustain. He's a manaless champion. You know what I mean? And so I know Zinx is not that, but I would be really, really interested to see a ranged, and whether it's AP or AD, but champion that can get, that is designed specifically for the off lane role to be like the anti, you know, of the big, the tanky boys, if you will, or the beefy boys.
I know you weren't as experienced with Zinx, but she's exactly that. She's exactly what you were talking about. She was she was an offlaner that could just survive.
And I love that.
Goddamn near impossible to kill if she was built up right. And the thing is, you wouldn't be killing anybody with Zinx, but by the time your team got there, they would have done nothing to you except use all of their mana and cooldowns, and you would be perfectly healthy. It didn't even matter if there was a tower there. You just fucking sit there and
she's just kind of like a
gag under the tower.
She just sits there and just lets you expend on her, and she does nothing to her.
I'd expend on her, all right.
So, well, because I think we're out of the community comments, but of the 4 that were picked, I'm curious because again, you guys are way more, you know, experienced with these guys. Which of the 4, or if you want to discuss all 4, would you think that each studio could enact the best?
Like, I think which Wukong and Overprime would go hand in hand for a bunch of reasons. One, I think Overprime's gameplay from granted again from the last test, right? There have been a lot of changes since that last test that could totally throw this off. But the gameplay fits what Wukong was in Paragon, right? That kind of really fast-paced, go in there, do a bunch of stuff, right? Wukong fits that really, really well. In addition to being a Eastern company, Wukong is also a very Eastern idea. So there's a lot of like parallels in them bringing on Wukong sooner than later. And honestly, Overprime has kind of been doing that with their heroes of like, who do we need? Let's put those people in very quickly. And then now let's go out and seek what the other games don't have and who the most controversial people from those games are. I would not be surprised to hear that the next 2 heroes that are added are Aurora and Wukong to Overprime. Like those 2 just instantaneously, I could definitely see being added to Overprime in the near future.
With that in mind, is there anything specific that you would say to like the Overprime dev team if they were listening to you that you would want them to either change or adjust or keep the same about Wukong?
So this is going to be controversial.
Okay.
I think 1 million hairs should stay the same.
What?
Yep, I do. I want them to balance around 1 million hairs. I don't want them to balance around the rest of his kit. I think that ability was really unique and created a pinball zone of against Wukong. And I think if you can keep that intact, you will have an ability that none of these other games have. right? If you are able to put that in your game, balance it perfectly, right? Balance the kit around that, where that maybe he's terrible until he hits level 6, but when he hits level 6, now Wukong's online. Now he's gonna do that, right? So I think I think he should be balanced around 1 million hairs, no question.
Well, I think
It's called 84,000 hairs, actually.
Whatever.
Okay.
well, I think
And, you know, in
84,000
Paragon-
hairs.
In Paragon, it was 1 million.
No, I think the only thing they really need to change, I think, is make it do ability damage instead of basic damage, because that's what made him shred towers. Because towers take way less damage from ability-based attacks. So I think that's just the only change that Epic ever needed to make to him, and they just never did it. It's just weird.
Would have made him way more balanced. I think if he was a ability power character, it would have made more sense in general.
Yeah.
In terms of his balance, maybe in terms of like lore wise, it doesn't make a ton of sense because he's not really using magic necessarily. But I think that would have balanced him way better just across the board.
I think for Predecessor, I would most like to see Aurora added next for them. I think they could benefit from her the most out of all the games. And I think out of all the games, they're so focused on the beauty and the animations. And that's what Aurora was all about. Really solid design, really cool animations. And I think Omega Studios could do a much better job with her than anybody else. So if I see Aurora in any of these games, I want to see her in Pred next.
So same question.
We need a new 4K version of her side cheek poster.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Same question then, Mingus. Like, would if you were talking to the dev team, would you keep the kit exactly how it was in Paragon, or would you make changes, add-ons? If you could add advice, or if you have a thought, what would that be for her kit?
I think keep her the same. You could there's a lot of tuning knobs there that you can use for her. I think she was a fairly high skill hero because it was not easy to catch people in her ice circle, or in Hooker Frost, as I used to call it. I think it's the actual name was Hoarfrost, but I think she's just a lot of cool things that she could do. I would keep her kit the same. I just don't know what passive I would give her. We discussed it on when I said I was talking with Medkit and JPI. I think a cool passive would be for her to give thematically would be just a 5% general slow in her area, not like a huge area, maybe like an 800 unit area. And then that could be her tuning knob. If she's overpowered, turn it down to 3%. If she's underpowered, turn it up to 7%. And that would make it a lot easier for you to hit the Hooker Frost. I think it would be, thematic. Usually cold is associated with slows. So.
Yeah. Interesting. And then Jelly, what would you do for Yin? In which game would you want him in?
Yin's rough. I really like Yin as a character. I think she's fantastic, and I think she brings a lot to the table. I think in terms of which game she belongs best into right now, I'd probably have to say Predecessor, purely because the projectiles that are in Predecessor are bigger than they are in a lot of these other games. And so it's more important to have the anti-projectile melee carry in the game than it would be for Overprime necessarily. Overprime has a couple characters that she would be cool against, but it wouldn't be like a systemic change to have Yin in the game. And I think for Predecessor, it would be systemic, that you'd have to find a way to balance your entire game around that idea that she can stop or reflect projectiles and create interesting opportunities with that make the game more fun, instead of just, oh, she's only good in this one matchup, or she's completely and totally overpowered.
Plus, she was a fucking Revenant killer. She was a destroyer 100%. Of Revenant. I loved playing against a Revenant when I was a kid.
I dare you.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think Yin fits equally in Overprime or Predecessor, for real. I think both of them. Fault, I think, just has more because of Grim, and I think they just have more ADCs than the other ones kind of do. The other, especially Predecessor, the ADCs all seem fairly generic to me. They don't do anything, but I mean, I don't know. That's really
Drongo's
hard to
say. The only one that seems interesting, but he's Drongo.
That's a hard topic for me, because I just find ADCs as a whole to be uninteresting. you shoot people. Like they all, that's their main thing, is to just shoot people with basic attacks. Revenant's somewhat interesting because he can also be AP, but I don't know. It's just weird. Yin is different though. She's way like, yeah, you still have to hit people with basic attacks, but you have to decide when you're going to extend the range of that basic attack or when you're just going to go with her medium range. And then she also has that fun ability that kind of adds a little bit of verticality to her kit, because she could lash on and do her flip kick off of allies. So like if Rampage is jumping over a wall and you need an escape, you lash kick to Rampage and you're out of there too. And that, or with an engage. If Decker's jumping into the prime pit, Yin can come right along for the ride. And I think that's really cool. And then her ultimate, the big wind tunnel thing that would slow people and trap projectiles, I think that would be really cool in any of the games. I think Yin is probably right behind Aurora for me as far as who needs to be added into these games fairly soon. And it's not even it's definitely for the Reflect, yes, but I think there's a lot more to her kit.
She brings more to the game than just her Reflect.
Yes,
absolutely.
100%.
So to continue on with Zinx, I don't think any of these games need Zinx by any stretch of the imagination.
I agree with you. I loved Zinx. Don't get me wrong. I loved
great
Zinx.
Character. This
but
is nothing.
She doesn't fill a niche she doesn't fill a niche right now.
So, okay, then is there anything about her to keep her identity similar to what we're familiar with in Paragon, or you guys are familiar in Paragon? Is there something that can be changed or adjusted that would make her viable for these games and worthy of putting into the roster?
So I said potentially make this change for a balance reason, but I think it's valuable and it would give her a place in a lot of these games. Make her stun a silence. Or her ricochet stun. If you made that a ricochet silence, that would actually give her a position as kind of like the anti-mage, anti-caster position in these games that nobody really has. Right? Bellica's kind of the closest you have to that with her drone, depending on which game you're playing.
Sure.
But even then, it's not quite the same thing.
And it's a little
able to just full-fledged say, you don't get to cast for a minute. Right. And I think that we could bring her into a position in these games. Otherwise, she's just kind of samey to a lot of these other characters.
This is going to sound... Okay, go ahead. My bad.
Well, just real quick, because I don't know if it'll lead into your point, but like you guys mentioned that she wasn't really much of a damage dealer. Is there a place in which they kind of like amp her up a little bit to be able to be a bit more, damage focused and not just somebody who's kind of stalling out games or holding objectives or whatever?
Well, that's the thing with her. If you did, once they fixed her and you could use Kitty Claws, you could shoot, more than twice without using all your mana. She actually did deal a lot of damage, but it was a give and take, as was said in the comments. You had to work on that conservation of your mana in order to be survivable. So she could deal damage in the right situations. What I would like to see them do with her, especially for Predecessor, because Predecessor does not shy away from making kits that we're like, whoa, what the fuck, like that seems overpowered. I think they go that route with Zinx. Make her a Swiss Army knife. Make Kitty Claws, instead of doing a damage over time, make it apply trauma or an anti-heal, or should I say, bad medicine, which never hardly ever did anything. Make that sap mana, and then have a silence too. Just make her a Swiss Army knife that can do anything. I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
As long as she has the mana for it.
I think part of the problem with Zinx is she's basically a support that they put into the offlane, right? Like it was kind of this weird,
Kinda, yeah.
But she was terrible at support compared to the other supports. But then she wasn't really effective in the offlane. Like it was just this weird. She was put in this weird spot with her kit design and the numbers they gave her. And so I think that's just makes her in a weird spot for all of these games in general. And I could see that being why she's at a 7%, right? Like she doesn't bring anything to anything other than a stun and a silence at this point, right? Like
she doesn't fill a niche that isn't filled.
Yep.
So of the four, it sounds like, she would need the biggest adjustments to be viable in a current game, whereas Aurora sounds like she maybe doesn't need anything. Wukong,
I don't think it's a viability.
Right, yeah.
She would be viable in these games.
Yes.
Okay.
She just doesn't bring anything new to them that makes the game exciting in any different way than the rest of it.
Got it. I think she would be successful even with her old kit if you put her into these games. She's just not going to be any more successful than Grux in offlane or like the Sevrog offlane, something like that. Like she was a very tanky, but she had some range. I don't know. She's not going to fill a niche that isn't already there. But yes, I think she would be very viable in any of the games.
Nice.
A Zig support rework would be cool from Tainted Devil. I think that would be cool as well. I would kind of like to see that.
I think we've been seeing that, like FaZe being put more into a mid lane position with a lot of these games, right? Fault kind of tried to make her kind of either more of a casting mage,
Mhm.
right, in the support lane, but even like Overprime, we saw that she was being played in mid lane some a little bit. I think we could definitely see a Zinx that could flex maybe an off lane, maybe a support, depending on itemization requirements
Yeah.
or abilities there.
What if so? Frieza's kind of bringing up something that I'm. What if what her Kitty Claw for at the cost of mana was similar to like a Teemo blind?
No, get rid of blinds. I hate blinds in these games. FaZe is the only one with a blind, and in Overprime is the only one that it's implemented in any kind of good way. Blinds are terrible.
They're very frustrating to play against.
Yep.
And they actually don't do much in competitive play.
Well, I mean, I would say in Overprime, it made a huge difference. There was, I mean, that was fight changing when you would get pulled, blinded, and you. I mean, depending on how what was going on, you could be in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
It was wild. Like I've never played a game where that would happen. Like where you're just like, I literally can't see anything. I can't do any. If I press an ability,
you can see an Overprime because there are plenty of times that I got blinded by a phase and it didn't make a difference.
Oh, really?
Right? That's where I think Overprime's phase is very, very different and better. If you're going to implement a blind, this is how you do it. It's
they were
not
still kind of
just
blobby.
go to a black screen. It makes everything blurry and opaque. At least I can do something with reasonable, right? At least if I see a flash of VFX from a direction, I'll be like, I can point down there and aim at it. At least I have options. Right? It's not just a straight up like, yeah, screw you. You don't get to see anything. You could be running into a wall for all you know. That's terrible.
So what if the blind was something more like where it reduces the amount you can see instead of like doing a blur effect like you do? So like I'm trying to think in League when you get smoke screened by Graves, you know how it like just reduces your vision down to like a very tiny pool?
I think it's terrible.
Do you think that's a bad idea?
Teemo and Graves are both terrible for that. Quinn is the only one that I think is different. And Quinn's blind is different.
What makes hers so much more different? It does the same thing. Her E, when it hits, it does an AoE and blinds you can't attack and you can't do anything. Same thing as Teemo's.
No, Teemo's and Quinn's blinds are two different things.
Okay. I'm gonna need you to explain how then, because I don't know that.
Teemo's blind, you can't hit anything at all. You can see just fine, but you cannot basic attack anything. Quinn's, you can basic attack, but it's in an area around you. They're completely different abilities.
It reduces your vision, right? Okay, I got you. Yeah.
At least you can do something, and that's the key difference. Is it's not something that just is anti. You don't get to do anything in the game anymore.
I mean, Silence does that same thing, and you're wanting to put that on her ability pool.
Silence only stops abilities. You can still do something.
Yeah,
you can move. You can basic attack. Okay. I don't know, man. I'm just throwing ideas out there. Don't get angry at me. Jeez, bro.
I'm just saying that there is a definitive.
So feisty, man. What the heck? You hate console players or something? What the heck?
It was brought up earlier in chat. I think Dapper brought it up. With Murdoch having his rockets, that would again Yin would be
obliterate V2.
Yeah.
Yin would and his grenades too. Like if he's sitting there in the back and just using his grenade launchers. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think it could be fun. So, what do you guys think that each game really needs a niche filled that's not currently being filled? And it doesn't have to be by one of these champions if they take a champion that's already out and then put it into the game. Because I know we still have a little bit more time to kill until we get some more questions from the audience. But what would you guys add in to one of the games that needs a niche filled? Whether that's more AD carries, more supports. Like I know Overprime, we kind of felt like they needed more supports during the playtest. Ideas, thoughts?
Or Mangoes, I'll let you go first.
I think Pred needs a burst assassin. They don't have Countess yet, and that's something that they are lacking right now. Kalari sort of fills that role, but not really. Nowhere near like you would get with Countess. And then I think they're all also well, Fault's not liking it, but I think Morigesh is another one. Just that dot damage hero, that poison hero. Nobody really has that right now, and I would like to see that implemented. Fault's the only one that has it with Morigesh, and I think Fault has done an excellent job with Morigesh. She no longer has that long range hive that she used to throw. Now it's you call it spitting. It's just a point of origin AOE cone in front of you where you spit out the damage instead of that hive. I don't know. There's a few niches that could be filled. I think Aurora being able to abuse terrain is a niche that needs to be implemented in any third-person MOBA for it to be a true third-person experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I would agree. I think that creation of any kind is valuable, right? Whether it be creation of turrets like Iggy and Scorch, creation of walls, creation of a lot of stuff. Basically, the only one that has any kind of creation ability is Vault right now.
Not sponsored. Don't smoke. It's bad for you. Not encouraged.
Yeah, Mangoose. Sheesh. No, but
Found it hilarious that Levy guessed it.
I think that's a big one, right? And but I would agree. I think Morigesh dot damage in general, I think is a cool thing to have, assuming it's applied in moderation, right? It's not just you're dotted to death. Congrats, right? Like, I think, but there's a lot there that can be done. I think burst assassins in general is something Paragon lacked. Diversity in burst assassins, because it was really just kind of Countess and then Kalari depending on the patch. But I think that's something that's sorely missing. We've got really good diversity of playstyle in AD carries. We've got diversity of playstyle in mid lane, diversity of playstyle in the jungle, depending on who you play, and off lane. So I think then you're trying to fill out more of the niche roles, and burst assassins is one that's sorely lacking.
Yeah.
I think I'd take what you guys were talking about earlier, the counterpoint to the burst assassin would be the super beefy tank. Like I think that adding in a major tank, the thing is like, and I think League is a really good to point at this, and I know Mangoose hasn't played a lot of League, but there's some tanks in League. Like I think right now the current iteration of like Maokai, for example, so fun to play. Like, and he adds in a lot of tankiness. He has like, good CC. There's a lot of really cool opportunities for him as a tank in the current version of League of Legends. And I think that these third-person MOBAs, if they were to either fine-tune some of the ones that could potentially be more tanky, like, the other games haven't added in Greystone, right? But maybe they make him a bit more of a tanky, guy instead of being the Garen. He's more of a tank. I could see that being viable. I think getting in a true tank that's fun to play, that's the big thing, is because no one will play a tank if they're boring as shit. So you have to make a fun tank, and I would argue a fun tank that can be flexed more in either I wouldn't want him flexed in two roles, either jungle support offlane jungle, or something like that. Like I don't think it would be better if they could be in two roles, because then it gives more opportunity to be picked in a lobby versus it only gets played in offlane, or it only gets played in jungle. I know. Yeah, that's it. I'm not going to go on another side point. I'll just leave it at that.
There's one side point that I just realized that I meant to bring it up much earlier, but with missing niches in the different games, that may give us a clue as to what Adele will do for Overprime and what Huntress will do for Predecessor.
Sure.
Because they can design that hero specifically to fill a niche. But is that something they want to do? Because we saw Paragon do that to try and balance their game by designing niche heroes to balance their game, and it didn't really work out for them.
I think part of it is those hero implementations were always 6 months too late, right? Like
Yeah,
it felt that way, right? That they're like, okay, projectiles are a problem, and in 3 months, Yin comes out, and it's like, wait, what? Like that's not. No, we need Yin now. We don't need Yin in 3 months, and so it's hard, right, to do it that way. It's basically hoping that meta still exists by the time the hero comes out, and that is a crapshoot at best to hope that that's what's going to be what happens, right? But I think there's also value in creating meta-defining heroes that the meta will shift because of this. It's not a counter to the meta by putting this character in, because then it creates new opportunities for things to change, right? Like Yin was an answer to the projectile meta, but Yin just as easily defined the meta at the same time, or could define the meta at the same time if they pushed her in the right directions and flexed her in certain ways. So I think there's value in a lot of ways with that. Adele, I hope Adele has a taunt. I want a taunt so bad in one of these games. It's going to be fantastic.
And we did see that they added a taunt.
Yep, exactly.
I agree with that. Taunting would be, I think, would be really, really cool. valuable. I mean, a lot of this too, like, goes back to itemization, and I do think that we haven't heard a lot about Predecessor's itemization, like, and what they're going to do. I know in the playtest you guys had some pretty strong opinions about it, and Overprime it was kind of lacking, but it seems like they're putting in a lot of time in to make those a little bit better. So I know a lot of these changes and a lot of these champions will depend a lot on what kind of itemization we're looking at. And I know we give Fault a pretty hard time, but for the fact that they've been out for 2 years, their items have gotten pretty in line. I mean, they're not the most exciting items a lot of times. They kind of just, here's damage, or here's damage reduction, you know what I mean, or here's more mana sustain or something like that, which is fine. It's serviceable. But for these other two teams that are going to be coming out, it'll be interesting to see how these current iterations of champions and the ones that are going to be released and the items that kind of help facilitate that more. Because like even Predecessor having more blinks, Wukong with a free blink, and all the others, I mean, there's some real interesting stuff. I don't know. Carry, I think Sevarog is a tank, but well, depending on which Sevarog you play, you have his stacks take so long to come online, and the game ends before he's really a true tank. I think in Overprime they did a really good job of getting him a little bit, but even still, just because the games were still ending it, like, granted this was in the playtest where things were ending super fast, there was just no reason to pick him when you were ending the game at 10 minutes. There's no tank is going to be tanky at 10 minutes, so it's not really fair to say how tanky Sevarog will be in Overprime, because he did get his stacks a lot faster than he did in Fault, or what I could remember from Paragon.
Kat is asking why isn't Wukong the top, and I would just like to say, Kat, it's because you didn't vote specifically. It was a butterfly effect. If you would have voted for Wukong, that butterfly effect would have come into play.
Big call out.
I'm just kidding.
See, I'm with Sophisticated Carrot here. 100%. Free Blink needs to go. I think that is going to add some really unforeseen consequences as we get more of these heroes in the game. Like you said, with Wukong, like with a lot of these things. Or it's just going to turn into a moot point that you're just going to both blink, like I talked about last week, and it won't mean anything either way.
What about adding in a Poppy style anti-movement? Like, remember she throws up her little ring around her? I don't know what ability. I think it's her E.
W,
and it's
yeah.
Oh, it's a W? Okay, perfect. So it stops dashing. That would be kind of cool. Because that's one of the counters that when they did her adjustment, right? From old Poppy to new Poppy, was that exact thing. She, with all the dashes now that in game, that's why you see her in pro play, because she's just, your dashes mean nothing to us now, and I'm going to stun you into a wall, and you're just going to die. Like, so I agree that, like, the dash is probably the biggest thing I think that Pred's going to have to try and balance around. The fact that they just give free blinks, it's going to be mayhem, I think. It's so nuts. Like, because you guys said Yin can follow somebody, right? Can she then now follow some of these crazy blinks? And I mean, you're going to have that's going to be wild. How do you track all of that in a third-person MOBA? You can't. You just don't. You don't have that's wild. I don't know. Wild. I'm not saying get rid of it. I just think it's going to be a nightmare to consistently balance around.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Predecessor, maybe the team's already got it figured out. I don't know. We'll just have to trust them at some point and then see what it's like once the game comes out. But it does seem like a balanced nightmare when you think about some of these champions having a free blink. I mean, just Ginks alone. It's just, I don't know. Whatever.
Maybe that'll be next week's poll if we don't get a whole bunch of news, is free blinks, should they exist? Yes or no?
And we're continuing the game of Predecessor and Overprime Chicken, where we're waiting for one of them to announce so the other one can announce.
Does anybody have any questions before we start wrapping things up?
Hennessy wants to know what the pie chart is for.
It's community voted on the heroes that have not been implemented in any way whatsoever between all the different games. Which one would we like the community like to see added? And it was actually Terra is actually involved. Is Aurora, Wukong, Yin, and Zinx, and Terra are the only remaining 5 that we haven't seen represented in some way between the 3 games.
Which is, yeah, I want to go back to that. I think that's wild. That we're at the point that
He's
only 5
Dr. Pepper at over 10.
All right, then.
Folks back in Hazard County hadn't seen a Dr. Pepper in well nigh 10 years.
I think it's wild that we're down to 5 characters that have not been implemented into any of these games.
Yeah,
That is kind of crazy.
That's absolutely crazy.
I think it's kind of crazy that a game that's been out for 2 years hasn't added all of them yet. But that's just throwing shade.
10 weeks left in the year? Is that true?
I have no idea. I can't math.
What? No, 10 weeks? There's no way. Oh yeah, 10 weeks. That's true. Actually, I'm not.
11, depending on how you count, 10 to 11 weeks. Holy crap, that's wild,
dude. So yeah, one of these games got to come. Dude, come on, please be one. I'm streaming, by the way. I'm Pred or OP. If they come out, I am going to be live on my YouTube channel. It might be scuffed. I apologize in advance. But if you're interested in seeing me play video games poorly and having Jelly Knees yell at me when I don't do exactly what he wants to do,
yeah,
tune in. That would be.
That's the real entertainment value right there.
It is. It is.
Yeah, tune into my channel if you want to see Jellies come streaking out of the woods at 5 health, yelling, "Help! Help!"
That'll happen on mine too. It'll be on both because he doesn't know.
But I will say, Jelly, you get the kills, and you do somehow get out.
I believe that somebody
time.
made a video of 4 ADCs in one video because I kept getting kills and the games kept ending. I don't know. I think it's crazy. So I'll take my occasional streaking out of a jungle to 20 kills.
How are there not more heroes in Fault? Surge Bennett, man, I don't want to dig into Fault tonight.
Yeah, it was probably my fault for even opening the thing. I'll turn it a little bit while we wait for a few more questions to maybe come in and we'll wrap it up. Right?
We're about to wrap it up over here. Yeah.
So I think because this is something you said earlier, and I'm curious if the team agrees, or if Jelly has the same. I thought Overprime's version of the 80 carries was less boring than the current version of Fault's. I didn't get to play Predecessor, but I find Fault's 80 carries to be super boring to play, and they just don't feel all that exciting. Whereas when I was playing Overprime, I'm not normally an 80 carry main. I normally play mid lane or maybe off lane. I had a blast playing as all the carries in Overprime. I thought all of them felt really, really exciting. Sparrow was probably the least exciting of them, but even she was still
Sparrow.
yeah, but even still, she was still pretty fun, especially once you got some items on her, because she just shredded.
The cool thing with Overprime is they all felt unique and fun to play with a complete lack in diversity of items. Right? Open up itemization further for carries, and they're gonna only accentuate that fact, right? Their kits actually felt entertaining, actually felt fun, useful, all the whole 9 yards. And like Fault, the carries just all feel like attack speed sticks, right? Like you're just waiting till you can buy your next attack speed item so you can do more attack speed, put more damage out there, the whole 9 yards. And that's not what Overprime felt like. It felt like you actually used your abilities just as much on certain characters, or even more so than you would basic attack. And I think that's valuable.
And I think with that makes me think that Yin going into Overprime, and I know, again, I didn't play Predecessor, but I just think that having another kind of crazy different carry in that role would be super fun to see. I think that would be, especially with the amount of projectiles that she could counter, right? Like, dude, that would be nuts with that reflect. I mean, they would have to keep that, right? That's like one of her most iconic abilities in the game. They'd have to keep that.
Kat has a good question. What are your personal opinions on characters that we will most likely not see for a minute? I think Zinx, like we said, I don't think she really fills a niche, and she wasn't that popular of a hero, even though I loved me some Zinx. And Terra, I think, is another one. Just people had quit playing Paragon by then, so a lot of people don't even realize that Terra existed. I think it's odd that Boris has been kind of like, Boris is in Fault. He was in Overprime for a little bit before they got bought up by Netmarble. It's weird that a hero that was never released has actually been in a lot of these games when we haven't seen the other ones. But yeah, I think Zinx and Terra will probably be the last two we see in a lot of these games.
Yeah. Ruba's here. Ruba, I did not get a chance to play Predecessor, man. I wish I did.
Hook it up, and we'll get an FTM playtest in there, no problem.
Oh yeah, hey, if you want me to play your game, I am down. You just hit me up. You can send me a message on Discord or send me a DM on Twitch or on Twitter, and I'll definitely jump into your game and give you my thoughts on the next FTM. I mean, I would love to play. Obviously, I think it looks like a fun game. All the footage, and these guys talk about it, and the community talks about it all the time. I mean, it was the highest voted on your last poll last week, which was super exciting to see. These polls have just been popping off on your channel, man. That's so cool that the community's really coming together these last few weeks to engage in all this stuff.
People love my poll. That's been true for years and years.
Yeah.
Byron Mordred Poe, I don't think Hatch is going to be...
We're good.
I would love to see Hatch so bad.
I know, right?
Rude, Ruba. Rude. He's just like, we're good.
I was talking about you earlier, Ruba.
Oh, that makes me
Didn't
sad.
Red Clown has a question. Didn't they say that every Paragon hero will be eventually in Pred? Yes, all these games will eventually have all the Paragon heroes. They've all come out and said that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But
Just what iteration we'll get of them.
When,
Except
yeah.
Ethereal.
Yeah, not Ethereal. Pole goose.
I prefer Goose Pole, but whatever.
I mean, your preferences don't matter here, okay?
I used to know a guy named Peter Pole, and that was always funny to me.
Y'all can buy EA, okay? Fair enough.
Oh,
Thank you.
is that a
we
leak?
can buy it.
Buy EA? Excuse me?
Buy it?
Ruba's leaking? Okay.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Ruba's right now like, God damn it.
Deletes his message. If I see a deleted message here in a second, I'm going to die laughing.
Hatch would be amazing. I think Hatch would be amazing. Marsh would also be amazing. That would give us another dot hero. I don't know.
100%.
I think that was a slip of the tongue in a sense. I don't think he actually meant it, but we'll see. That'll be funny. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have anything else to add at this point, unless any other cool questions from the community before we wrap it up. You guys have anything for us? Follow me on Twitter if you want to, by the way.
I guess Richter Cat, because Richter's my favorite, but for some reason I've always seen Greystone as having a man goose skin. I don't know.
Every time he throws his chain, feathers come out of it. Oh man, I would love that.
I also would love that. Do you know what? Actually, I would like to see some of these games is the emotes that we're seen in. Oh my gosh, the Omega Strikers, where they took like basically Twitch emotes and had them where they could pop up over your head. I know this is a third-person MOBA, but I still think that would be super cool if they had like the ability to throw emotes up and like, you know, have them kind of be fun and cartoony, because it's just fun to do. I do it in League too, where you just throw out emotes when you're like, you know, farming or whatever, nothing is going on, you just throw out random emotes. Because I hate the emotes where you stop and you have to like pose and shit. Like those ones are meh.
Surgebin, if you missed it, you missed it. Sorry, I can't. Like you didn't hear it here first anymore.
I don't want to throw Ruba under the bus. I saw it, but I didn't want to throw Ruba under the bus anymore.
You notice that Ruba has not said anything since then. The axe got brought down real fast.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Oh, I just want to point out that a guy folks got said Narbash for a goose skin. Nick Tana actually drew me as Narbash a long time ago. Drew
what?
Well, he drew a Nargoose, which was actually
hilarious.
really cool.
Man bash?
Yeah, he drew Mandy and I, and drew her as Sparrow with a PS4 controller as her
I feel
bow.
like I remember this.
Yeah,
Long time ago.
long time ago. Yeah, I still got the picture of them.
Since when is EA not ever paid for?
Whoa!
Ooh.
So he's doubling down.
Ooh.
Okay.
I mean, okay. There, I can think of a lot of examples, but okay.
So this is my take, and this is I know we're almost wrapping it up, but I don't necessarily mind the paid for EA as long as there's not some crazy predatory monetization in the game as well. So if I'm paying to access the game, that's fine, as long as anything else that's in the game is not gross. I'll be okay with it. I do prefer free to play, but I don't mind a paid to play for early access. Name one EA game that's free to play. Oh gosh, there's like
Isn't Omega Strikers early access?
well, I don't know if they call it early access or if they call it beta.
Well, the secret's out now, Serge Ben. Now you know. I get apparently early access for Predecessor will be paid early access, which kind of expected, but you know, we've never had true confirmation whether it would be a paid early access or not.
I don't have one off the top of my head that was EA that wasn't paid for, but it's like normally now again also would depend on the pricing. So if it's anything over like $20 maybe, depending on what their monetization is like, as far as like buying skins and stuff like that. Like,
Paragon was free for me, but I went. That's because
Yeah.
I won a contest. Then I went and paid for it because I loved it so goddamn much. I was like, I need to give these folks some money. This small Epic company needs my money to produce this game. That's what I said.
Yeah, they used that money, Mangoose, to be into a small, not small company anymore at this point, dude.
All right. Specifically my money. That the butterfly effect again. I'm the reason Fortnite exists and Paragon
You are
doesn't.
100%.
It's 100% me because I decided to give money to Epic at one point in time. The fucking butterfly effect, man. It'll get you. It'll get you.
It got me too, though. I mean, and I bought Fortnite when it was still just a single player game where you actually built forts and played against zombies and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, so I was in the early parts of Fortnite.
Yeah, those people got fucked. The ones that actually enjoyed that mode. Anyway, okay, let's not
No, they
turn this
brought it
into a
back.
fucking Fortnite stream, though.
They brought it back. It's actually a pretty good game now.
Cancel both of these guys. They both said the word.
We said it multiple times. We just dropping F-bombs left and right over here. All right, so I think that's about going to wrap it up. This was a fun episode. It was fun to talk about the different niches that need to be filled within
True, Des.
all these games.
Mangoose killed Paragon. It's true.
Yeah, yes,
He
Des.
confirmed it.
You heard it here first.
Vitriol needs to belong to Mangoose.
Come at me, bro. I'm jacked.
Let's do our shout outs and call it a day.
Yeah. Viking Jedi, start us off. What do you got to plug? What do you got to shout out? What do you got to say for yourself, mister?
Plugs. Okay, so I know it's not nearly as popular as our FTM streams, and this is not your channel changing by any means, despite maybe people thinking otherwise. But I love being part of the anime podcast that we do every Thursday. Please come and check it out if you like anime, or if you just want to see more of us too, plus 2 additions in Dapper and Owen. It's just a lot of fun, and we just shoot the shit a lot of times. It's a lot more laid back sometimes than FTM is, where we're covering a lot of news and stuff like that. So it's a really cool, fun show. So please come and check that out if that's something that sounds interesting to you. Otherwise, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm also in Mangoose's Discord. I have my own Discord, but it doesn't really do a whole lot. But so if you guys have questions or want to talk to us about things, hit us up there. And then follow me on YouTube too, because I will be streaming when one of these games comes out, and I will pay for early access if I have to. So there we go. Because I'm excited for it, and I think that the project's worth supporting, at least as it currently stands. So I'll be there. That's it.
Jelly knees.
I would say follow me on YouTube as well. Subscribe, whatever the wording is, man. I've been out
Yeah,
of
yeah.
games
I don't
for
know
long.
those words.
But because I will be doing the same. I'll be streaming all these games when they come out. It'll be exciting. Good to see me run out of the bush at 5 health and all that good stuff. So, and Mangoose saving my ass more times than I can count. So, but yeah, absolutely. It'll be exciting. I'm excited for it. Mangoose, what about you?
I do want to clarify that that's usually after you've ganked my lane several times and put me way ahead. So,
It's
as
fine.
much shit as I talk.
You know what it is, Mangoose? I'm used to it. I'm okay with this kind of hate. I'm a jungler. I get it all the time. So it's fine.
Jungle diff. All right. Yeah, like Viking said, the anime thing is not my channel, but it is something I really enjoy. And even though I'm bleeding subscribers left and right, I don't give a shit because I enjoy talking about anime. So I'm going to keep talking about fucking anime. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this week's. It was a really fun stream. I'm glad if you guys showed up for the stream. Happy if you showed up for the video that it turns into, and probably bigger predecessor news than we thought.
Apparently.
Tonight. So that was pretty cool. Let me find my outro. Where did I put it? There we go. All right. It was fun hanging out with you guys, but this is the For the Minions crew signing off. You guys have a good one. Mangoose.
Hashtag scuffed
Special
Jedi.
shout
if you
out
made
to
it this
channel
far
members
in the
I,
video.
Bloodhunter, Blastoise King, Raven, Meow Mix for Ben, Jelly Knees, Clorox TV, Joshua Van Noctis, Stunt, Actual Dez, Soul Reaper, J-Man 63, Levy, version 2, Dapper